West Ascension Consolidated Drainage District calls to order. Mr. Shakespeare, you don't mind doing the invocation?
Dear Lord, we always want to give you thanks for this great parish of ours. We'd like to ask you to assist and help the flooding victims, the people that have their houses, their cars invaded by these floodwaters. We would like to also ask that you give strength to all the people that work so hard to save their houses from flooding, and give thanks to them, to their accomplishments. Also thanks to all the people that came to people's aid around here, where there was never any doubt about receiving help from their neighbors, is what this great parish is all about. And we want to thank all them, as well as all the workers of the parish and EMS and Sheriff's Office for all that they've done in this emergency. And also we want to, lastly, but very much not least, we wanted to give our condolences and our prayers to Kim Bro's family with her niece that recently had an accident. We ask all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Myself, Mr. Shake Snyder, Mr. Anderson, and Mr. Redelia is all present. Accepting the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Minutes accepted. Item number 4, master drainage plan. Mr. O'Neill, we still working on that?
Yes, been still working, making some progress on it. I think we've moved from place to place. As we finish one, we'll move to the next.
All right. Okay. Item number 5 is the smoke bin, Barcelona Drive, Mr. Redelia.
Okay, Councilman, as I told you, I think at the last meeting, we went back and dug some new ditches by the front by the highway. We found one ditch that was collapsed, which was stopping all the water from going towards the north end, cross culvert. Craig and them was able to dig all that out. We took that broken culvert out since the homeowner didn't need it anyway. We have seen great improvement in the drainage on Barcelona since we did that. We blew out all the culverts on Barcelona now. Craig and I paid a visit today. On the back end, Craig and I found one culvert where one neighbor met the other neighbor, but they didn't put a catch basin on to each other, and it didn't match it up. So there's about a 7 to 8 inch gap, just a straight open gap, where all the debris and all the mud is caving in, going in there and plugging that culvert up, going back towards the railroad tracks. So Craig and I are going to look at that, and we're going to try to come up with some kind of plan to seal that off. And I'm really confident that it's probably maybe be our last. Just we'll see. Okay. That's all I have on Barcelona.
All right. Okay. Item number 7.
I have no update.
George, Mr. Redelia, that's the Randy event on May.
Okay.
You don't have no update on that?
Yeah.
Oh no, you said.
Item number
6.
7.
No,
You
number
skipped
6 is
6?
7th Street.
Oh,
drainage.
You skipped 6. I said no update. Okay. Now we can go to 7. I'm all right.
okay.
Okay. Inside of your meeting folder, there is another folder that says rain storm event, May 2014. There are some photographs, and there are a few issues that we're going to go over. I'd like to start out first, but so everybody knows, we had 13 inches of rain in 10 hours. Our totals, especially in the A-band, St. Jude area, and Downsville area, was 18 inches plus. You found it? You found the folder?
It's inside that phone. Keep looking.
Okay. I'm going to get to your documentation in a second. I'm just giving my report, okay? 18 inch plus totals on the West Bank. St. James below us had the same. Our winds that day were out of the south, southeast, which combined with the rainfall, St. James Parish having the same rainfall, and the tides blowing in with the wind, it was impossible to get the water out. I did a little research, guys. Now you can go to that sheet, the other sheet you have. The last time we had this much rain was Allison, June 2001, when the gauges at Convent, which is right across the river, registered a little over 19 inches. I stayed in constant contact during the event with the freshwater district to be sure that we weren't compromising the drainage in the city. Your first page shows the discharge cubic foot velocity of the bayou pumps. You can see that they were shut off before the rain event started on the night of the 27th. The small peaks were, the only thing they did, every 3 hours, they had to run their pumps for 15 minutes so they could have good, clear water for people's water suction. In case anyone doesn't know, their suction is right at the entrance of the pump discharge, okay? The next 2 pages show what the levels did in the bayou, and I think that this pegged out in both. One of them is the bridge at Montchamp, the other one is the bridge at Sonic. Both of them pegged out at about the same distance, so I don't think either level gauge expected to go up that high, okay? If y'all got any questions, y'all beat me up with them as we go along. The first picture, guys, if you go to this picture here, this is Bayou Verret crossing at Lemonville Cutoff Road, which you can see the water at that time had one heck of a flow current. The water was trying to get out. We were dumping water like crazy. You see it, the conversation on this one? Okay. It was flowing. We had no problem with the flow. We couldn't get it all out. But we got down to Bayou Verret at the railroad tracks where St. James Parish took over, and we were sort of like, I hate to say it, but dead in the water. The next 2, 3 photographs were pictures inside of our DPW building. Okay? Now you know why we so badly need a building. All right. What we did on this side of the river was we handed out, or people picked up, over 1,400 filled sandbags. We had 8 loads of sand this side delivered. We picked them up. We gave out 3,000 plus sandbags. All of our debris has been picked up by the residents. Any list that's called in, we are caught up with that. None of it's left. We've cleaned several of our ditches where we picked up debris from the rain, and we're still working on that. We're not completed. Okay, some of the findings that we're going to work on here, other than what I already told you. On June the 10th at 9:30 a.m., we are going to have a meeting here in the courtroom. Parish President and I are going to meet with Lafourche-Levitt District, Ascension Parish, St. James Parish, and possibly DNR in regard to the dredging project survey that we took part in. Okay? Bear with me? And on June the 12th, which is Thursday, myself at least, and I'm trying to get Bill to come with me, we're going to go to LaPeace All Field at 9:30 a.m. with some members of the Lower Delta Soil and Water and St. James Parish to look at some of the problems with Bayou Verret in St. James Parish. The Lower Delta Soil and Water contacted me and, can we do this, Jordan? I said, absolutely, we can do this. That's all I have, gentlemen. If I would like you to wait a little bit longer, Mr. Rick Weber is here, our OEP director, and he has a little short presentation of a flyover he did after the flood.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to get into detail about the data on the rain. George pretty much covered that, but the rain rate is what got us, as well as the volume of rain that fell. If you compare flash flooding to backwater flooding, it's about the same as a tornado is to a hurricane. I mean, we've got time to prepare for backwater flooding and a hurricane. During a flash flood, everybody seems to need the same resources at the same time. But what I want to show you first is the area around A-Bend and Point Homus. What you're looking at now is you're flying west. east away from Donaldsonville. And this is Point Homus, and this was on Saturday morning. This was after the water had begun to recede. I'm going to fast forward it just a little bit so we can, the plane's going to fly all the way to Point Homus and then start turning back west towards Donaldsonville. So he's making a turn here, and you can see the volume of water that's still around Point Homus. And I'll go a little bit further. And you can see the dark part of the field here. I mean, so this was inundated with water. This whole point was completely full of water. It was like a reservoir that pushed down westwardly towards Donaldsonville. Now it's going to fly west along the Mississippi River. Again, still on the T-Boy property. You can see the bridge in the background near Point Homus. And it's going to fly a little bit further and turn south, flying into the A-Bend area. You're going to see it start to turn here. You can see the water back in A-Bend, but this entire area was inundated with water. Flowed through here and backed up towards A-Bend, and you can see some of the water as we get into here. It's almost up to the river road in this area. So this was the impact. If you look at all of this area, you can see the dark areas in the field. You can see how far back the water had came. Again, this was Saturday morning after the water had begun to recede. So this volume of water is what impacted A-Bend. It's what impacted St. Jude subdivision and the Comfort Inn on Highway 70. It's going to make one quick turn. It's going to head back east, and you can see the water coming up here in A-Bend and how it impacted all the homes in that area. The other video that we have is in the St. Jude subdivision. I'll cover that one real quickly. Again, this is St. Jude heading towards Highway 70. You can see the water that came in from this area still around Point Homus and back up. I think it affected, correct me if I'm wrong, George, 6 homes in the St. Jude subdivision?
I think that's right, including mine.
And again, this was the volume of water that impacted A-Bend and St. Jude. And we'll fast forward just a little bit more, and you can see the standing water here. But the one that I want to show you in particularly is the video around the Parish jail. You can see the volume of water back here, but what I want you to notice is the 2 canals, one that circumvents the jail and then the other drainage structures that go around this side of it. If you notice the parking lot, it still has a little bit of standing water. It's wet, so the jail had a little bit of an impact, just affected by the water, but it wasn't damaged. But if you look at this canal that runs this way, it runs around the jail, the other ones come this way, and as the wing lifts up, you still pause it when it gets here. You can look at Highway 70 near the Comfort Inn, right? Come on up a little bit more. Right there, it drains to this point. So as George was saying, that whole area, Point Homus, drained to this point. So anything downstream of this point was causing it to stand in this area. Again, I'm not a hydrologist. It would take somebody else that has that experience to look at it. I just wanted you to get a visual on what this thing looked like and the volume of water that fell that caused this issue on the west bank of the parish. But as
Excuse me.
yes, go ahead.
Do you have any pictures that show as it goes in, our streams, we're showing our streams that are open and they're flowing. Do you have any pictures that show as it goes into the wooded area in St. James and, the different?
No, I don't have anything in the St. James area, and it wasn't until I got back to the office and I started analyzing some of the video that I understood how the drainage worked on the west bank. So this gave me it's a really good learning point for me, because that was something that I wanted to get familiar with. So I've got a better understanding of how it works, and if we do any more flyovers, I definitely want to capture that. But it almost seems the flyovers are more effective a day or so after the water begins to recede, so you can see exactly what's happening out there. And I'll make sure that I get them if we have another event.
Yeah, because as it goes and it leaves from there, it crosses over the big road, and then it crosses over the railroad track, and it goes into the wooded area that's in St. James,
yeah,
which is what George was talking about. We've been working with them for a couple of years to try to improve the drainage, because all of this water right here ends up in Lake DeSalmon.
Right.
And it's important that people know where their water is going to. And right now, the logistics of, as I know President Martinez has been working, we've been having meetings with Mr. Roussel in St. James for a number of years, and we've been trying to work through to get the proper permits to be able to dig that. And, and St. James is in a particular situation where it's very awkward and hard for them to do that much major drainage work because it's a very long system. And so we have put up our portion of money to do the studies to get, and I think it was $78,000, George?
No, I think the total.
What was
the
that?
7,000? The total was 57,000, and our part was like 17, if I remember correctly.
Somewhere around there.
We split it between,
All three.
between us, the Fuchs Levy District, St. James Government, and they added 2 more canals, so Ascension participated also in the funding.
So the money has been put up to assist, to be fair with St. James, so that we would participate and to assist them in getting the drainage that actually goes through St. James, but it does drain this part of Ascension Parish. So we're willing to assist, and we're willing to, and are open to any other type of assistance from here on out, because ultimately it helps, our people here get their drainage. And with that, I also want to let people know that we've had a number of people, and I think, what was the total number right now that you have on flooding?
Right now, we did a detailed damage assessment, and we're tracking uninsured residents that flooded, and we had 109 total that was uninsured. It's probably going to exceed 150, which I'm sure that it will exceed 150 total. We developed with the IT department a map with all the flooded structures that we can start to see the clusters of where that's happening at, or where the flooding is happening at, so it's going to be a good reference point for us. So right now, we've got 109 uninsured. That's what we count when we apply for individual assistance. It'll exceed 150 total.
Please explain the reason that you're counting that as that's for applications for federal insurance.
Yeah, I knew that we wouldn't exceed the threshold, which is $327,000 for public assistance, which is assistance to the government to get reimbursed for their expenses for an event. Individual assistance is a little bit more subjective, and it's done by FEMA out of Denton, Texas, Region 6 out of Denton, Texas. And normally what they look at is approximately 25 homes that sustained major damage throughout the incident. And between Ascension and St. James, we didn't come close to that number.
And
we had a lot of houses that were damaged, but by their criteria, it didn't meet the...
That's another thing. The criteria that they use, please explain what the difference of a person getting 4 inches of water, a person getting 11 inches of water, and so on. What is major damage?
Yeah, major damage is when you get, I think, 8 inches or more water, you got some buckling in the walls. It's sacrificing some of the foundations, so it's quite a bit of criteria that you go in for major damage. You can have it affected with just coming up to your baseboards, or you can have minor damage with 1 inch of water. It's just, it goes up a tier by their category. So it's a category that the parish doesn't set. This is a federal category that determines major damage for individual assistance. And unfortunately, we just didn't meet that criteria.
Because if anybody's ever flooded, they would know that if you get water in your house, that's major damage.
That's major, yes. Yes.
And President Martinez, I'd like to make sure that we get an accurate accounting, because in a lot of times the people don't know what to do and who to contact. We've had an accounting of the uninsured homes, but we want to make sure that if you had water in your house, whether you're insured or uninsured, that you contact, and who would the contact?
Right now, we have, if you can email us, it's going to be flood@ascensionparish.net. You can send in pictures, you can send in data for the damages that you have. So flood@ascensionparish.net.
Flood@ascensionparish.net or 621-8360.
8360, or you can get to us on Facebook if you need to get to us. Either way, we'll try to obtain all the data that we can.
And then I'd also like to ask the people, because they had a substantial number of people that would have gotten water in their house, the level had gotten up, but
that mitigated it.
They went out and they sandbagged, or they had things around their house to prevent that, so that we can get dots on the map so that we can get an accurate idea of where this water was. You know, so please call, so that's important to get that accurate accounting. Yes, Mr. President.
We have, currently have maps with people that have flooded, and that's how we go through our hazard mitigation grants. But we send assessment teams out to every place that we know that flooded. We had teams out doing assessment and calculating what the damage would be, and that's how we came with these numbers. We had several minor flooding, flooding in homes that we went to, but there wasn't a whole lot of major flooding. So basically, we're going to dot. We got dots all over the map now, and that's how we go about our grant applications, and so we know which houses now that flood, and something that we need to talk about in the future, maybe the possibility of looking at some sort of parish grant type assistance to where we actually would go in. I don't think we can afford to buy everybody out, but I think we can afford to at least give them an option to maybe raise those structures X amount. And so we need to look at that and take all this data that we have now and look at the possibility of at least trying to come up with a program. And also we could prioritize it by the damage that was done. So that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing and continuing on with the process.
Okay. And thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
There's some people, some residents here that had come in here after the meeting before we had this, before this information started. And Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I'd like to be able to have them address us.
Ms. Green, whoever wanted to address from the A-Bend area, if you have any question, any, Ms. Sandra, please.
Ready to come up to the podium?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Sandra Francois. I live in A-Bend. Those homes have been back there 46 years. The flood waters that we had the other day, never saw it before. I had 4 to 6 inches of water in my home. The floors are buckled. The floors are ruined. So I would like to know what type of assistance are we going to receive, if any, because we don't have the funds to lift the home at this time. So what, and I would like to know what caused such a drastic flood. How did it happen?
I think that was addressed, and before you got here, Mr. Radillat gave an assessment of what the event was, and maybe George, you'd like to talk about the amount of water.
I can state what I told you guys before. Okay, we had 13 inches of rain in 10 hours.
Okay.
We had over 18 inches total on the West Bank. St. James Parish had the same.
Okay.
All of our waters are gravity flow. We have no pump. They flow to St. James Parish. At the same time, we had a south and a southeast wind, which also pushed the waters back towards Ascension Parish. This did not enable the waters to flow out. It was too much water in too short a given time. So not only this parish, but also St. James Parish had the same issues we had. I live in the same area. I live in St. Jude. I've been out there 37 years. Never had water in my house. I had water in my house this time. So I understand. And so I did a lot of research. We have not had this much rain since Allison in June 2001, when we had 19 inches roughly in our area. But the winds were such that the winds were throwing the water back out, back towards the south. So the water didn't hang in, and nobody got the levels that were received this time.
Okay, so in other words, you're telling me that because of the rainfall in such a short period of time, which was 10 hours, and you said there was 18 inches.
13 inches in 10 hours.
13 inches in 10
And over
hours.
18 inches total during the period of time,
18 inches total.
during the event, correct.
And because of the wind, the rain wasn't able to
to get
Filter out.
out through St. James Parish.
So the rainwater that we get goes through St. James Parish?
Correct.
Okay,
Flows from Bayou to St. James Canal to Lake DeSalmon.
okay. But what I don't understand is, there's a canal behind our home. We've been, like I said, that home has been there 46 years. We have flooded many times, but it took 3 to 4 days for rain to actually have the land flood. So I still don't understand. I mean, you saying something about the wind, okay, I understand that. But we've had more rain, 3 and 4 days. That's how long it took for the water to rise up to the homes. So I really don't understand why in 10 hours, water was in my home.
Because we had 13 inches fall in 10 hours, where the time you're talking before, you may have had a 13-inch rain in 4 or 5 days, so the water built up slower instead of all in once in 10 hours, ma'am. It did not build up all of a sudden. That was spread out over a 4 or 5 day period.
Okay,
I can offer something too that, in our dealings with, and President Martin has confirmed this, with Parish President of St. James and their drainage guy. Historically, in the past, about every 10 years, they used to dredge the major canal that goes back there all the way to Lake DeSalmon. They did it on a historic basis. It got to the point where the permits to go through the Corps and get the permits to dredge the canal is so hard to do that Tommy, it's been, what, 25 years since I think they told us the last time?
We tried to do it back in 1994,
And
last time, but we never got it. We didn't get the permits.
and they didn't get the permit then. So it's been over 20 years since they've been able to dredge that canal. And so what used to go out in a free-flowing canal is no longer that way. And so that has had an effect, and they realize that, and that's what they're trying, that's why we're meeting with all these parishes to try to get the necessary permits that has been implemented by the Corps engineer just to clear out the drainage ditches that allow people to be drained in this area.
okay, so therefore you tell me the canals haven't been dug recently?
The canals that starts at the St. James line and goes to Lake DeSalmon. All of our canals, which we have pictures on, all of them are all open and all clear.
The one that they say was dug
Yes,
3
ma'am.
weeks ago?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And I would be glad to, we will be glad to at any time if you see any obstructions or anything. Craig and George has been out there. We've got pictures, and we followed up to try to see, where there was a failure, if there was.
right.
And what happens is, it just was all over. It was just overwhelming.
Okay,
And-
so
and-
in regards to assistance with the homes, what is in place? Nothing?
That becomes a federal issue on that, and that's what Rick is here with, emergency operations.
Yeah, we had 109 homes without insurance that were damaged, and the federal government set certain thresholds for disaster, and unfortunately, we're not going to be eligible for any federal aid for this disaster because it didn't meet the state's threshold for assistance.
And Rick, the local aid goes through the Red Cross?
Local aid goes to the Red Cross. We're working with the United Way. It's going to be an extremely small grant if it happens. So we're going through the Red Cross, we went through the Salvation Army, we're going through most of the church groups, working with Volunteer Ascension. They're doing what they can, but again, there will be no federal aid for this incident.
So if you're a resident of this parish that is trying to reach assistance for the damage that was, they contact your office to go through and find out the groups that are have assistance?
They can contact 621-8360, and we'll advise them on what to do. But again, it's going to be limited because we will not get any state or federal aid for this incident.
Ms. Francois, have anyone from the parish looked at your house? Have Rick or any of these people looked at your house that you know?
With
of?
Rick. He's Rick?
Rick, Mr.
No,
Rick?
I haven't seen him. The only
Have-
person that I saw that came to Aben after Red Cross came down the lane was Ken Shakesnider.
Okay, so Red Cross is the one that take the numbers Rick?
Now, Red Cross doesn't take the numbers. There was a GOSEP team with a member of my office that went through ABIN that talked to some people. Now, I don't know if they talked to her in particular. I know there was 3 houses that they didn't get, and that we got them by email from George later on, and she may have been one of those houses. But I know we had a GOSEP OEP team that went out to ABIN to get that data.
Well, in the case of Ms. Francois, she was unfortunately on the deep end of
Yes.
the road, and so if the people went there in a car, they couldn't get to her house.
I'll get with her and make sure that I have her address, but I'm fairly certain that I do. And that was all submitted to GOSEP and then eventually to FEMA. But again, because of the parish as a whole, St. James and Ascension combined, we still didn't make the threshold to get federal assistance.
But, Ms. Francois, I would make sure you get with Mr. Weber. And
Oh,
get
I
his-
will.
And get his information and everything.
Oh, that's Rick Weber?
Yes.
I called his office. I spoke with Amy, I think that was her
Yes.
first name. So I don't know if she took my information and passed
She
it
did.
on. Okay.
He did.
All right. Okay.
And certainly we are
I'm
sorry to
finished.
hear of your
Thank you.
situation.
All right. Mr. President, you wanted to say anything? Okay, I seen your hand wave, something like that, so. Oh, okay, all right. Moving on. Anyone else wanted to speak on behalf of that? No, okay, moving on. Item number 9, West Side DPW Ascension, West Ascension Drainage Building. Basically, we need a budget approval. We didn't have that in the budget, George.
So moved.
All right. Second it. Item number 9 for $9,200 is approved.
And just so you know, I spoke to Mike Petty yesterday, and just to give you an update, the notice to proceed was issued to the building engineer for the building, and he's working on the foundation redesign. Mike's also spoke to Bob Horner, who is our new chief engineer, and he's working on coordinating the site-related drawings as well. The foundation redesign is supposed to take up to 45 days to complete. So that's the latest, what I have on the building. It's going forward, and we're moving in the right direction, it looks like, for a change.
Okay.
That's it.
Item number 10, discussing a resolution for drainage for Iberville Assumption Parish. Mr. O'Neill?
Yes, I prepared a resolution at your request. The issues that we've talked about so far have been on the riverside of Bayou Lafourche, which is covered by the Lafourche Basin Levee District. The resolution is asking the Chaffalaya Levee District and the delegation to assist us to address drainage issues on the other side of Bayou Lafourche, because that's not, we haven't dealt with that levee district that I know of to this date. And so that's all we're doing, is just asking for some assistance then to address the drainage problems on that side of Bayou Lafourche.
Okay.
And to let everyone know there, if you're on the northwestern side of Donaldsonville, all the drainage there ends up in Lake Barrett eventually, and it goes through Iberville and Assumption. And so we're trying to work with them to try to help promote the cleaning of those canals through there. And that's what this resolution is about. So with that, I'd offer a motion to send this resolution to them.
All right, got a motion by Kent, second by myself. Motion to pass the resolution is approved. Item number 11 is report Mr. George Redelia, West Side Coordinator, Assistant DPW Director, Operational Management.
And a couple of other more towels.
I mean, since you putting them all on here, George.
I didn't type this. Okay, we got just a couple of things to let y'all know about. That ditch moving thing that we talked about. We're still working on that. They had originally got all of the right-of-ways, temporary right-of-way, 90 days. There was a correction that needed to be made in those right-of-ways that I caught, so I think they're gonna go back and get them again. But in the meanwhile, I think that Craig and I visited the property to the back. We went in there with Mr. Martinez, went to his property, went across, and we think we have come with a solution to make the survey easier, that we only have to go across one piece of property where the woods would be blocking the survey. The problem we had is that piece of property has cattle on it. We have to go across that one, they're gonna have to put a gate in. The landowner from the rear has agreed to put the gate in for us. As soon as that gate is in and it drives in, then we're gonna go in there with some mowing machines, once we get permission to bring the motorized equipment on the property, and then we'll take care of that, okay? And we'll continue to move forward. Once the survey is done, we can go from there and do estimated costs, et cetera. We're cutting grass, and normal maintenance is in the works. That's it.
Mr. Craig?
On
Anderson?
on the rain event that we had, we did the best we can with the resources we had, you know, with the manpower I had. You know, we did the best we can to try to help the resident, but we couldn't make it to everybody, you know. And it was so hard to get the sandbags from across the river to here. You know, we need to set up somewhere we can have that over here. You know.
I think that,
Can I have one more thing I forgot to tell you? I forgot to add to my list. We've talked to the parish president, Rick Weber, Bill Rue, John Rich and I. We had a meeting, and we've going to look at putting some sea cans out, getting 4 sea cans. 3 of those sea cans will go on the east bank, 1 will go on the west bank, and we're going to stock that sea can with sandbags and try to store sandbags ahead of time. Again, we have to keep in mind that all sandbags, they have a life expectancy. So we're going to have some kind of, you know, way and be sure. We don't want to open it up and find out we got a bad, but this should help us out, okay? So that's in the process, all right? Excuse me, I left that off my other stuff.
right, now, I thought we do have a plan for the future with it, so
Yes.
hopefully it works.
Yes.
Anything else, Mr. Anderson?
No, that's it.
Greg, I'd like to thank y'all. I know y'all were really getting around, and
We were trying.
yes, and you know, it's appreciated. We thank all your efforts. You know, I know some people we didn't get, you know, what
No,
we did.
we couldn't get to.
We did save a number.
All right. Item number 12, setting date and time for next meeting. July 3rd, Ms. Peggy, I think they're gonna be changed, Ms. Peggy. I'm pretty sure they're gonna be changed, okay?
Put that tentative for the next week.
Right.
Or whatever. Can we say it as the,
Whatever the council meeting is,
council
I think the
meeting.
council meeting may be moved up or back to the following week.
We'll publish that notice in plenty of time as soon as we get the council notification.
All right. Item number
move
13,
to adjourn?
second. Meeting adjourned.